Welcome back to Doctor Who The Cancel Chronicles. Today, we will be simply continuing the 11th Doctor era with his next 2 seasons. Let's do this. As time went on, Russell T Davies, with the trust of the audience and the BBC, was trying to do more experimental ideas. A duo of up-and-coming writers, Mark Wright and Cavan Scott, pitched an idea. A trilogy of 2-parters to be featured in the season written by them. It would be a story arc about certain returning characters with the Doctor, past and future, in the middle of it. Davies loved the idea, so he went with it. So instead of the season ending with a big, bombastic 2-parter, the 3 stories would be the main drive of the season, along with an ongoing mystery started in the first episode involving a character that would become a companion. Plus, Davies wanted to push the envelope on what could be shown, but not going too far as to repeat what happened in the 10th Doctor era. However, outside of that, nothing else really changes in terms of technical aspects. The first story is The Woman in Chains, written by Jacqueline Rayner. The Doctor and Michael come across a woman who is trapped in the Tower of London and has been there for centuries, yet has never aged. The Doctor must find out what has happened to her and why she became trapped here. This would be a mystery episode that would kickstart an ongoing plot for the season. A young woman, played by Florence Hoth, named Tara, would be found while the Doctor is investigating something across time. She has no memories of what happened to her, and there is pretty much no evidence in regards to any foul play. Just that, according to the Doctor, she has been imprisoned here for centuries. Most of the episode would be the Doctor and Michael investigating the anomaly of her, but not being able to figure it out. So they decide to take her with them to figure out what happened to her, but also free her from her imprisonment. They have the typical spiel of her seeing that the TARDIS is bigger on the inside, and they go off for a fun adventure. The second story is the Arthurian Legend, written by Russell T Davies. The Doctor and company are separated. While trying to get the TARDIS fixed, Michael and Tara are left abandoned on Earth, while the Doctor is thrown into an alternate reality where he must fulfill the destiny that has been awaiting him for so long, to finally become Merlin. The episode would essentially be the prequel to the events of Battlefield. This episode would start with the TARDIS crew finishing a lighter adventure in the present day when the TARDIS won't take off. Michael and Tara try to keep themselves occupied in the present day, while the Doctor tries to work on the TARDIS. Eventually, the Doctor does something that causes the TARDIS to go into some sort of emergency mode and fly off, abandoning the companions. The TARDIS lands on another world, the parallel world that features the legends of King Arthur. The entire episode would be set up for the events of Battlefield, battling Morgaine, still played by Jean Marsh, and becoming Merlin, fighting alongside Arthur and other characters who knew him. Together, they eventually imprison Morgaine. However, the Doctor is forced to spend a couple of years on the world while he gets the TARDIS fixed, fully becoming the legend and having many adventures with Arthur. Eventually, the Doctor fixes the TARDIS and must leave, and gives the residents of this world a timestamp to study so they know what his other incarnations will look like to recognize the 7th Doctor in his past and their future. He eventually leaves and goes back to his proper world only a few hours after he left. He meets up with his companions and they have a nice reunion, mainly for the Doctor after not seeing them for so long, and they eventually leave for another adventure. The third story is Project Twilight, Parts 1 and 2, written by Mark Wright and Cavan Scott. In the renovated docklands of southeast London, on the bank of the River Thames, the doors of the dusk are opened for business. Bets are called, cards are dealt, and roulette wheels spun. As fortunes are won and lost, an inhuman killer stalks the local avenues and alleyways, a killer with a taste for human flesh. Is there more to casino owner Reggie the Gent Mead, or is he just a common gangster? What secrets are hidden in the bowels of the dusk? And what connection does the apparently sleazy Bermondsey Casino have to a long-buried government initiative known as Project Twilight? The Doctor must form uneasy alliances where the line between friend and enemy is blurred, playing games of chance, but are the stakes too high? This would be an adaptation of the Big Finish story of the same name. Little changes. The fourth story is Thonis Heracleon, written by John Dorney. Thonis Heracleon, an ancient Egyptian city that was swallowed by the Mediterranean Sea 1200 years ago, was discovered in 2000 and has been the site of an underwater excavation since then. It is thought to have been sunk by an earthquake, but the Doctor knows deep in his soul that it has to be something else, but he's not sure if it's extraterrestrial or a far greater ancient evil. This would be another historical fiction mystery episode. This would involve an actual sunken city that existed at one point. In the near future of 2018, the Doctor and company investigate what happened, as there appears to be something not of this world attached to it, like an aura or a device they find, something like that. So they go down with a team to try and find something that maybe caused this. As they investigate further, they find that a great battle between the Egyptians and something else took place that caused it to be wiped off the map. The Doctor finds out it was a race who actually looked up to Egypt and used their society as a basis for their own. But they got so obsessed with the idea of them that they believed only one should exist. So essentially they wiped them off the map, but due to something else that happened, they were destroyed along with them. The Doctor never finds out what is it that destroyed them, but it's insinuated it was either the Doctor himself or even another Time Lord. The fifth story is Lost Beauty, written by Matthew Graham. The Doctor, Michael, and Tara head to a planet that is gray and barren, but used to be lush and beautiful. It is controlled by an evil goddess-like figure who has brainwashed the population to do everything for her, with the promise that she will return the planet to its beauty, a promise she doesn't intend to keep. Looks like it's up to the Doctor and company to stop her. This would be a Doctor overthrowing the dictator type episode. The evil dictator of this world, who is named Fionis, crash-landed many years ago. She was heavily damaged in the crash, but found that she had this power to absorb nutrients of anything she touched. So she used this power to become beautiful, to bend people to her will. Eventually, she practiced and honed her skills to eventually get control of this world, as well as absorbing all the nutrients of any living thing so she can remain in power. The Doctor and company eventually land on the planet, and Fionis had pretty much the entire population brainwashed. The Doctor sees through her ruse, as he was aware of the beauty this planet had before she took over. The Doctor tries to help people to help him, but too many people are inherently brainwashed, except for 2 children who were too young to be brainwashed by her. Through various means, the Doctor tries to take her down, but nothing seems to be working. However, he eventually realizes that the spaceship she was a part of had nanomachines that were a self-replenishing fuel source, and it got attached to her DNA. Along with the new physiology and the nanomachines to make it work, she got the ability to absorb nutrients from living things. She essentially used her skills as an engineer to make gadgets to brainwash everyone, but then, through her newfound abilities, she absorbed them into her body so that she can't be stopped. Well, the Doctor reverse engineers the machine and uses it to take away her newfound abilities and give back the beauty to the land. However, the Doctor can't save Fionis, and she actually thanks him before she dies, as ever since the crash, she became too corrupted by her abilities. The population, unfortunately still somewhat brainwashed by the now dead dictator, views the Doctor as a villain for killing her despite her giving back the planet's beauty. Michael asks the Doctor if he's okay with not being viewed as a hero, to which he replies, "Helping people, young Michael, is never about the people knowing your name. It's about doing what's right, no matter what." The episode then ends with them getting into the TARDIS and leaving. The sixth story is Project Lazarus, parts 1 and 2, written by Mark Wright and Cavan Scott. Unfinished business. A frightened girl is stalked in a land of eternal night. A hunter longs for recognition and power. A traveler in time returns to correct the mistakes of the past and faces a danger that could rob him of his future, unless his future intervenes. And in the shadows stands Nimrod, waiting. Welcome to the Forge. This would be an adaptation of the Big Finish story of the same name, with the biggest change being that the Doctor that is brought back would be the 8th Doctor, played by Rowan Atkinson. Not much else would change. The 7th story is Angels from Above, written by Stephen Moffat. The Weeping Angels have returned, yet the only problem is the location. The Doctor, Michael, and Tara are in full, complete darkness. You never know when an angel will strike. It would essentially be a very simple horror-esque episode, but it would be found footage and almost in total darkness. It would take place in a deep cave off the coast of some foreign country, and they get stuck inside. They eventually survive with some close calls, but they permanently shut off the cave, so the angels could eventually die off without the time energy they need. The 8th story is The Evil Within, written by Matt Jones. An evil was locked away millennia ago, but unfortunately for the Doctor and company, they have been released, and now there is an evil running around that is almost exactly like the TARDIS team in every way except their goodness. They must stop them, but how do you stop the evil that couldn't even be stopped millennia ago? This would essentially be the Furies taking the form of the TARDIS team and wreaking havoc. There would be some sort of lore added in regards to celestial beings in the Doctor Who universe. While the Doctor cannot kill them, or imprison them where they found them, he decides to endlessly torture them in the Eye of Harmony of the TARDIS. It would be a very simple episode, but that would lend itself to more so world building than the actual story. The 9th story is Project Destiny, parts 1 and 2, written by Mark Wright and Kevin Scott. 1999, leaving her infant son behind, a young mother named Cassandra Schofield departs Bolton, seeking a better life amid the lights of London. 2004, despite the best efforts of the time-traveling Doctor, Cassie Schofield dies at Dartmoor, a vampirized victim of the sinister organization called the Forge. 2021, all grown up and a nurse at St. Gart's Hospital, Thomas Hector Schofield, known as Hex, meets the time-traveling Doctor, but remains unaware that this alien traveler knew his mother and watched her die. 2025, now, in a London ravaged by a deadly contagion, destiny awaits. This would be an adaptation of the Big Finish story of the same name, with one of the changes being that Hex would not be a companion of the Doctor, just a temporary companion-esque character just used for this episode. The 10th story is Rust of the Raston, written by Simon Boucher-Jones. The Doctor and company stumble upon a spaceship filled with Raston warrior robots, the perfect killing machines. The Doctor finds that they have been refurbished to perfect working condition, but who would want the perfect Raston warrior robots? The Doctor might know the perfect candidates. The Rani and the Master. They have plans to vanquish the planet that the Doctor loves so much, but have they gone too far? Who will be victorious? This would essentially be an episode featuring the Master and the Rani as the main villains, played by Derek Jacobi and Kato Morrow once again. The two of them decide to hijack the ship and the Raston warrior robots and let them loose on Earth, killing the population, with the Master and the Rani becoming the saviors of Earth. The Doctor doesn't believe that they would have a plan so simple, but they force him to work on the robots further to properly reprogram them, as they needed another Time Lord for their help. They keep his companions hostage. Eventually, the Doctor figures out that they plan to do this all across time on Earth. Of course, he puts a stop to them while the Rani share something about Terra's origin, but she doesn't reveal it. The Doctor then blows the ship up, and both the Master and the Rani regenerate, but it is unknown into who. The Doctor and company leave in his TARDIS before it blows up. The Christmas special is Voyage of the Damned, written by Russell T Davies, a spacecraft set on an apocalyptic collision course with Earth, a host of killer robot angels, and an evil severed head mastermind. It's just another Christmas for the 11th Doctor. This would just be the actual Christmas special of the same name, little changes, with the only exception being that the companions join the Doctor, while the original special just had him. Season 44 would be considered even better than its predecessors in regards to 11's era, and many liked the ongoing mystery and the trilogy of the two-parters that were featured this season. They liked Michael as a companion a lot, but many felt Tara to be a wet blanket at many points, as well as finding the mystery of her character to be more interesting than the character itself, but it was a well-regarded season despite this. Nothing else would really change from the previous season to the next, with the exception that the two-parters would go back to being the 4th, 7th, and 10th stories, rather than the 3rd, 6th, and 9th stories. Everything else would stay the same, although it was announced that next season would be Peter Capaldi's last in the role of the Doctor, and that a companion would be returning for his final season. The first story is Ripper, written by Russell T Davies. The Doctor and his companions travel to London, 1900s, as rumors spread that a haunting spirit that replicates the ghost of Jack the Ripper has arrived from the dead and is capturing women once again. Is this Jack the Ripper's ghost at large, or is someone else doing the job for a sick trick? This would be a darker and more foreboding episode. Even though the perpetrator isn't actually Jack the Ripper, the episode would almost treat it like it is, with a bit more of a spookiness to it, with it being a ghost, of course. In the end, it was revealed that it was a low-level criminal using alien technology to scare people to get focus off of his crimes. However, due to the mass hysteria he caused, the Doctor sends him to prison anyway, in a darker moment for the Doctor. As the episode comes to a close, it's heavily implied that the aliens whose technology was getting used would come down and kill him before the human authorities do. The second story is Grave of the Fallen Pilot, written by Simon Nye. The Doctor and companions enter World War II, where they meet a pilot named Albert, who is an ace pilot in the war, yet Albert soon discovers something unexpected for him to witness: his own grave. The first half of the episode is from Albert's perspective. He grew up always obsessed with the air. When he got old enough, he became obsessed with being a pilot. He eventually does so and becomes one of the best pilots the country has ever seen. Then, when World War II starts for the United States, he enlists. He is a successful soldier, as he would be with his skills. Eventually, he sees a blue box flying through the air and he decides to follow it. Well, because of this, he is transported a couple of years into the future. He eventually lands and finds the blue box, but it's just a normal phone booth. But he finds himself in the middle of a cemetery and he finds his own name: Albert Daniel brown, showing he dies only a few days from when he was originally from. The Doctor eventually comes out and realizes what has happened. Pretty much the rest of the episode would be the Doctor helping Albert deal with his eventual death, showcasing the Kubler-Ross model of grief. The Doctor shows him what happens to his family and to the future in order to get him to accept his death, but in a depressive state, Albert still doesn't want to accept it, so the Doctor takes him to a school, an elementary school to be exact. And Albert questions why he's taken him here, and the Doctor tells him that this school is the reason why he dies. Because a German plane was set to ram into the school, but due to Albert's actions, he saves the school by ramming his plane into the Germans due to the lack of ammunition. It kills them both, but saves the school in the process. It is at this moment that Albert realizes what he has to do. The Doctor, under strict instructions, takes him back in time to where he was when he left. The Doctor then sees Albert fly off into the sunset, accepting his fate, and the TARDIS dematerializes. The third story is The World Belongs to Me, written by Nicholas Briggs. The Doctor and company crash land in the near future, only to find that a now immortal Cleopatra has conquered the world and is reveling in every second of her domination. The Doctor, of course, must get to the bottom of this. The Doctor and company are in the time vortex when something forces the TARDIS out of it, and it lands in the near future. We see the world dominated by a now immortal version of Cleopatra. The Doctor and company try to avoid execution after getting separated from the TARDIS. Eventually, they get back to the TARDIS and head back before Common Era, where Cleopatra actually ruled. The Doctor sees that she now has an advisor that didn't exist before. He feeds her some type of pills not of this world, which would cause her to live forever. And of course, it's revealed to be an alien named Gersh, who is trying to experiment with Earth's history. The Doctor then reprimands him and tells him that history is not to be meddled with. With this, Gersh eventually sees his wrongdoings and decides that he must end her reign properly. She is on the cusp of proper immortality, and the only thing that can kill her is something that can infect her entire nervous system. With this, the Doctor must once again be a part of history and has an Egyptian cobra bite her and kill her. With this, Cleopatra is now dead, and the Doctor delivers Gersh back to his own people and tells him not to meddle with time anymore. Gersh agrees, and the TARDIS team is off for another adventure. The fourth story is Eon Parts 1 and 2, written by Tom McRae. The Doctor and his companions enter a strange future where a satellite named the Eon is programmed to protect and look after the city, only eyeing the city for any danger and making sure everyone is happy and living a normal life. The Eon also showcases to everyone the great saviors are to arrive and serve the people and protect them forever. But what the Doctor doesn't know is something is off with the satellite, as it appears the Eon isn't watching the city. It's unleashing a beacon to have the great saviors arrive, although it is soon to be revealed that the satellite is calling the Daleks. This would be an epic two-parter with the grand return of the Daleks after not seeing them for a couple seasons. The first episode would actually not showcase the Daleks at all, or even mention them by name, just that there is this satellite that is supposed to be protecting people and helping with their quality of life. While investigating the entire time, he realized that the Eon's main goal is to be used as a beacon for the great saviors, who turn out to be the Daleks. The second episode would be a typical Dalek invasion story with the Doctor trying to put a stop to it. Of course, he eventually does, and the Doctor and company finally leave. The fifth story is The Continued Depression, written by Andy Lane. An ordinary boy stowaways onto the TARDIS and encounters the Doctor and his companions. Before taking him back home, the Doctor and company realize he's from an alternate history where the Great Depression continued. The Doctor takes the young stowaway back, but he starts to question this reality as to who really is in charge of this world. This would be another alternate history episode for only most of it, but not all of it. Similar stuff we've seen before. But in the middle of it, it's revealed that it's not alternate history at all, and the Doctor somehow disappears. Now Michael and Tara must figure it out. There are plenty of reasons that they go through. It's a simulation, it's a plot by the Master, it's just an alien planet, until it's revealed that they never left the TARDIS. The small boy has some type of psionic powers that he can't control. He took over the TARDIS, but he can't stop his powers. He made the Doctor disappear. Michael eventually breaks free from his hallucinogenic coma and finds the boy, and since he can't do anything else, he has to end his suffering and kill him. Everything goes back to normal, and the Doctor comes back. They eventually deliver the boy to wherever he came from to have a proper burial, showcasing he wasn't a monster, just that he had something he couldn't control. When going back to the TARDIS, Michael tries to seclude himself for his actions, but the Doctor states that it was the last resort and he shouldn't blame himself too harshly. He hugs Michael along with Tara, giving him some encouraging words, and the episode ends. The sixth story is Mirror Image, written by Jacqueline Rayner. Landing near a creepy alien castle, the Doctor, Michael, and Tara split up to explore. Tara enters a room full of mirrors. She is snatched by her evil reflection. She finds herself in another dimension filled of mirrorlings, creatures waiting for their chance to escape using the mirrors to take on a new life and replace the originals, all of whom are stuck along with Tara, some for as long as 50 years. This would be an adaptation of the comic story of the same name, Little Changes. The seventh story is March of the Cybermen, parts 1 and 2, written by John Dorney. The Doctor, Michael, and Tara team up with Fritz Lang in the early 1920s to stop a Cybermen threat in Austria. The idea for this story is very loosely based on the Monsters in Metropolis Big Finish story featuring the Ninth Doctor, but it wouldn't be an adaptation or anything, just that's where the idea came from, and I decided to give credit where credit is due. So essentially, the first episode would be the start of the Cybermen invasion, with the Doctor and company along with Lang trying to stop the threat. The first episode would end with the Doctor presumably being dead. The second episode is a couple of months later, with Cybermen conquering Austria and soon will take over the rest of Europe. Tara is leading a revolution against them, and Michael is undercover with the Cybermen. This would showcase more of the body horror and scary nature of the Cybermen and them being used as a proper threat. Eventually, the Doctor is revealed to not be dead, obviously, and has found a way to stop the threat by hooking up Lang to the main cybercomputer, and with his rush of creativity and genius and actual emotions, he is able to stop the threat before anything of note really happens. The Doctor destroys all evidence of the Cybermen threat and wipes the population's mind, including Lang. But the Doctor states that a few years later, he does make Metropolis, one of the greatest films ever made, and features a cybernetic woman. So he probably didn't forget everything he saw here. With this, the TARDIS team leaves. The eighth story is Living and Dying by His Hand, written by Russell T Davies. The Doctor has encountered many impossible things in this world. Deities are one of them. The Doctor decides, along with many people he has met on his travels and even the Time Lords themselves, to figure out if these deities exist, or if they are really imposters. A very simple episode about the Doctor trying to find out if actual deities exist in this universe, and would reference characters like the Toymaker, the Guardians, and others. It would be deliberating with some Time Lord scholars as well as some other smarter alien races. He came to the conclusion that they exist, and he had actual proof to prove that they are actually otherworldly, but he would never actually reveal it, because the Doctor always lies, and the absence of truth is still a lie. The ninth story is Cold War, written by Mark Gatiss. In 1983, the tensest point of the Cold War, a Soviet submarine discovers a strange creature frozen in the ice of the Arctic. When one of the Firebird's crew breaks it free, it starts attacking. As the crew strikes back, the 11th Doctor warns them that the attack could be considered a declaration of war on the entire Ice Warrior race. This would just be the new Who story of the same name, Little Changes. The 10th story is Night of the Master, parts 1 and 2, written by Joseph Lidster. Many years ago, on a dark and stormy night, the disfigured and enigmatic Dr. John Smith invited his closest friends, Inspector Victor Schaefer and his wife, to a dinner to celebrate his birthday. A mere few hours later, all the occupants in that house have been changed. Some were dead, others mentally scarred forever by the events of that night. So what happened to the distinguished dinner guests on that evening? Perhaps we'll never know, but two clues have led to much speculation. Found outside the window a strange alien-like device, and found inside the house a blood-stained copy of Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. For one person, the night represented an ending to 1,000 years of darkness and an ending to 10 years of light. But for everyone else, is there no ending of this one night in hell? This would be an adaptation of the Big Finish story. The major change is that Derek Jacobi, after the events of Rust of the Raston, would play a heavily disfigured master after trying to regenerate during the explosion, and would become a halfway point between Jacobi and his next regeneration, rather than a returning Beavers like in the Big Finish story. Then Michael and Tara would be included in the story, although not as heavily as the Doctor, and the life that the Doctor must take by the end of the story is Michael's, but he can't bring himself to do it, so death must do it for him. With this, Michael is killed, leaving a depressed Doctor back to the TARDIS, with Tara waiting inside and telling her that no matter what, he will still try to save everyone, even someone as evil as the Master. The Christmas special is To Where It Started, written by Gareth Roberts. Christmas Eve in the late 1500s, and a young woman named Tara is about to get intertwined in an alien threat that results in her being imprisoned in the Tower of London. The Doctor will finally figure out the answer he has been investigating for years, and he's not gonna like it. So this would have finally answered the question on who Tara is and what happened. Apparently, it was the Sycorax that planned for all this to happen, and destroyed any evidence that they were involved so the Doctor couldn't find out who did it. However, being the Doctor Doctor, he eventually does anyway through the means of the episode. The Sycorax were just trying to experiment with the resilience of humanity and their spirit. The Doctor meets the past Terra and realizes that he can't do anything to help her so that history can stay intact, but decides to cheat the Sycorax and implant a memory of him in her mind so that she will remain hopeful for centuries. The present Terra then gets all of her memories back, including of her family. The Doctor still would love for her to join him on his adventures, but now that she knows what her life is, would prefer to stay with her family. The Doctor understands and lets her go, but she invites him to Christmas dinner, and realizing that he shouldn't be alone on Christmas, decides to accept the invitation and spends Christmas with Tara and her family. Season 45 was considered another great season. Many felt that Tara's character improved greatly and liked her ending, although many were upset to see Michael get killed. Despite this, many still loved the season and were sad to see Capaldi go next season, but were excited to see who was coming back for a companion. But that is it for Doctor Who The Cancelled Chronicles. See you in September for the next episode about the next Doctor Who spinoff, and see you next month for another video.